I swear to God, if this thing reroutes one more damn pallet of dog food to the diaper aisle, I'm going to reformat my brain with claw hammer. That was Natalie's lullaby at 2:37 a.m. on a Wednesday no one would ever remember, except maybe her left eye, which had been twitching since Sunday. Her Cleveland apartment was lit like a crime scene, half lit by the sickly hum of mismatched monitors, one of which occasionally fizzed like it was being electrocuted from the inside. Outside, snow hissed against the window. Inside, the air tasted like burnt dust and stale Pinot Grigio. Her AI script had just derailed another warehouse simulation, sending crates of EM straight into a virtual shelf labeled infant needs. But instead of breaking down, she let out a bitter, breathy chuckle. It was progress, ugly, glitchy, mutinous progress. And in her world, that counted more than praise from bosses who thought JSON was low-calorie syrup. By day, Natalie was a logistics systems optimization specialist at a startup called Vector Solutions. That title, printed in Comic Sans on her business card, was code for sacrificial nerd body. She fixed broken scripts, trained junior hires who thought Git was a dating app, and listened to Glenn, their crusty, ego-bloated COO, talk about disruption like he'd invented barcodes. Vexter was the kind of company where the coffee machine broke every Tuesday. And HR was one woman, named Lisa, who cried in the bathroom once a week. Her desk chair had 3 wheels. Her keyboard had sticky spacebar syndrome. Every Slack message felt like a slow bleed. But at night, after the corporate vampire hours drained her dry, Natalie became a different animal. No rules, no Glenn, no endless meetings about team synergy. Just her and the hum of logic grinding through lines of code like a butcher sharpening a blade. She was building something no one at Vexter could dream of, a modular AI logistics core that could learn, adapt, and rebuild warehouse operations in real time. No bloated contracts, no cloud vendor leashes, just pure, brutal efficiency written in her language. She didn't name it to impress anyone. She named it Marvin because it made her laugh, and laughing was the only thing keeping her from burning her employee badge in the toaster. Marvin could detect floor congestion before it happened. It adjusted picker routes based on fatigue models. It predicted inventory demand based on zip code weather patterns. And unlike Glenn, it didn't mansplain efficiency to her over lukewarm LaCroix. On that icy morning, snow built up on her windowsill, and her cat used a motherboard as a bed. Marvin stabilized. No crashes, no misroutes. Just sharp, pulsing intelligence blinking at her from a terminal window, like it was daring her to move. Natalie stared at it, not with pride, with something heavier, because she knew what came next. 3 days later, she carried a USB drive to work, shaped like a rubber duck, bought on clearance at a Walgreens next to expired lip balm. She told herself she wasn't doing anything wrong, just testing a subroutine, just seeing how Marvin would handle a live environment. She waited until the lunch lull when half the dev team was out microwaving something beige and overcooked. She plugged the drive into her cracked office laptop, praying the server didn't choke on it like it did on everything else. She watched the script unfurl. Marvin's neural routing module kicked in. The warehouse simulation flickered, adjusted, and stabilized. Response times dropped. Picker paths optimized in real time. Forklifts stopped colliding like drunk Roombas. Even the virtual lighting grid adapted to reduce glare on camera sensors. Natalie didn't speak. She waited for the results to rise like smoke. For Glenn to smell opportunity, and he did. He hovered behind her, greasy sandwich in one hand, the other perched on her chair like he owned her spine. "What's this?" he asked, squinting at the screen. "Just a test," she muttered, working on a neural logic layer. "Local only. You write this?" "Mostly. Upload it to the company's server," he said, like it was already his. "I want to show it a product." There it was. That moment. The moment before the fire catches. Natalie's cursor hovered over the upload field. The server folder blank and waiting. Her heart drummed in her throat. This wasn't the full engine. The core stayed on her machine, encrypted, untouchable. This was just a routing module, just a sample. Still, something coiled in her gut. A warning. Don't. But she clicked. A soft beep, a spinning wheel, and then transfer complete. Marvin was in the walls now. And somewhere deep down, Natalie already knew she'd regret teaching a vulture how to fly. It started with a calendar invite she never received. Monday morning, 10:04 a.m., Natalie was deep into debugging a stray thread that had somehow convinced a warehouse bay to light itself like a Christmas tree. She only realized something was off when Devin, Mr. Beard and Vague Ideas, walked past her desk holding a Vexter-branded binder and muttered, "Nice work in the demo." "Demo?" she blinked. "What demo?" Devin paused halfway out the door. "You weren't in Glenn's pitch this morning." Her mouse froze in her hand. "No." He gave her a half shrug, like it was above his pay grade to care, and left her in a silence thick enough to chew. By lunch, she found a video file buried in the server logs, titled Glenn Demo Final MP4. It was a 15-minute product pitch presented to the C-suite and a few external investors. Glenn, in his usual beige sports coat and fake enthusiasm, stood in front of a smartboard describing VectorFlow Core, a revolutionary AI routing solution designed to redefine logistics intelligence for scalable supply chains. Every slide was her architecture. Every diagram, her neural flowchart. At the 6:48 mark, he even used the phrase predictive congestion mitigation, a term she coined after her second bottle of wine and 4 hours of crying on the kitchen floor. She sat there, jaw clenched, barely breathing. No mention of Marvin, no mention of her. They'd even changed the name in the server directories. Her folder, labeled Marvin Beta, was now Flow Core Module A. Every commit message had been scrubbed. Her name, gone from a Git log, erased like a murder scene. Left behind were his initials and Devin's useless comment lines like, "Optimized for speed on functions he couldn't explain without Googling." Natalie walked straight to Glenn's office. He didn't even look surprised to see her. "Nat," he said, all fake brightness, "we're going to loop you in this week." "You demoed it without me." "Well, technically it's a team product now." She didn't sit down. "That's my module. You saw it once. You don't even understand what it does." He laughed. "We're all building this thing together. Besides, you uploaded it on company time. You know the policy. Anything developed using Vexter resources belongs to Vexter. I built the core months ago on my own hardware home." He leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers behind his head, like a smug CEO caricature. "But once it hits the company's server, it's ours. That's just how IP works." Natalie asked legal. It hit her then, not like a slap, but like the first crack in ice under your feet. Glenn wasn't stealing her work. He was erasing her, repurposing her mind like discarded code, slotting her genius under his name, and stamping a logo on her bones. She left without another word. Legs moved on autopilot back to her desk, where her coffee had gone cold, and her screen still blinked with Marvin's heartbeat. Her hands shook, but not from fear, from clarity. She opened her encrypted notes app. She opened the provisional patent draft she started months ago, back when she thought she might get funding, or maybe just a little respect. The draft still bore her name, time-stamped, documented. She uploaded the final code sample and updated the claim with the neural module's latest architecture. Then she submitted the final packet to the USPTO and sent a digital copy to her personal lawyer, marked urgent. 2 hours later, Glenn removed her admin privileges from the server. She only found out because she tried pushing a patch to Flow Core module and got locked out with an error that read, "Permission denied." No Slack ping, no email, just digital exile. By the end of the day, her name was gone from the project wiki. Devin was listed as the module's code architect, and Glenn had scheduled another meeting with investors, one she was conveniently not invited to. Her badge still worked, but only for now. Natalie sat at her desk and stared at her reflection in the black monitor. This wasn't corporate politics. This was theft in broad daylight with PowerPoint slides and a fake smile. As she quietly backed up the last original build of Marvin onto a cold storage drive and slid it into the lining of her purse, one thought echoed louder than anything else. They're trying to delete me. But she'd already written herself into the code. And no one, not Glenn, not Devin, not the entire rotting ecosystem of Vexter, could see the trigger she'd embedded deep inside Marvin's brain. Not yet. The email subject line was an insult wrapped in HR speak: restructuring opportunity for growth alignment. Natalie clicked it anyway, already knowing what fresh hell lay inside. It was from Lisa, the entire HR department, notorious for using phrases like emotional recalibration instead of gaslighting. The message read like a funeral for her dignity. Hi, Natalie. We're really excited about the direction Flowcore is heading. Better align your skills with our evolving needs. We like to transition you into a support engineering liaison role. You'll be instrumental in back-end documentation, bug triage, and process handoff support. Let's discuss this exciting change over Zoom. Lisa, no mention of her original role, no acknowledgement of her contributions, just a smiley face after a demotion disguised as a career opportunity. She stared at the screen, dry-mouthed. The word liaison echoed like a slur. Support engineering liaison. Support for the system she built, the system they were named, the system they were parading around like Glenn's miracle baby, while she got shoved into a backroom job that didn't even require code access. She didn't respond, not yet. At 3:07 p.m., she noticed Devin had started a new Slack channel called #Flowcore Squad. She wasn't added. She could still see the public messages at first. The first one was a meme of a superhero labeled Devin, with a speech bubble saying, "Optimizing like a boss." Another showed a blurry screenshot of her Marvin routing module, with a file name changed to DevonFlow WV10.py. No one corrected it. Then came the whispers. Colleagues who once asked her to debug their merged conflicts now passed her in the hallway, without eye contact. At lunch, 2 junior devs sat across from her and talked about Flowcore like it had sprung fully formed from Glenn's imagination. "I think Glenn really cracked something with that congestion predictor," one said. Natalie blinked at her sandwich. "You mean I cracked it?" They glanced at her like she was a party crasher. "Right." The other said, eyes sliding away. "But that was like early stage stuff, wasn't it? Like she'd been some code doula, gently ushering their genius into the world before vanishing into obscurity." That week's team meeting was a gut punch. Natalie sat in the corner, silent, while Glenn clicked through a bloated PowerPoint filled with colorful graphs, animated transitions, and every stolen piece of her soul. He wore that smug look he reserved for donor events and mirror selfies. Midway through, he paused on a slide labeled Routing Engine. Wouldn't work. He laughed. "Remember that early logic loop that kept routing pallets through Zone D like it was Mardi Gras? That was Natalie's original contribution. Kind of charming in a my Roomba has rabies sort of way." The room chuckled. Natalie smiled, like someone being held underwater. "Anyway," Glenn continued, "we rebuilt that whole logic engine. Devin's optimization layer crushed it. It's like night and day. More nods, more lies, more silence. Something clicked in Natalie's head. Not a snap. If the system ever tried to launch without her fingerprint, it would freeze, log the violation, and execute a graceful but irreversible shutdown. Not malicious, not destructive, a surgical strike. She tested it. She smiled. Then she committed it to the branch they were too lazy to review. The final line was a comment, in plain text, for her eyes only. Property must be earned, not stolen. Then she went home. Didn't answer Lisa's email. Didn't cry into her wine. She sat in silence, her screen dark, her cat curled in her lap. Let them take the stage, she thought. Let them speak in her voice and bask in her light. She was done playing nice. The ghosts in their machine now had teeth. By the next Monday, Natalie was smiling. Not a warm smile, not the kind that reaches your eyes. No, this one was colder, precision crafted. The smile of a woman who has watched her own funeral, then stood up from the casket. She accepted Lisa's restructuring opportunity without protest, claimed she was grateful for the new direction. Glenn seemed almost disappointed that she didn't put up a fight. Gave her a condescending pat on the shoulder, the kind you'd give a dog that finally stopped chewing the furniture. "Good team player," he said. Natalie nodded. Then she spent the next week polishing the launch presentation slides, perfectly, ruthlessly, formatting every data point, optimizing every animation. She made Glenn's performance bulletproof. Devin couldn't even read the graphs she made. He called them so intuitive while eating a reheated breakfast burrito that made the office smell like damp regret. She played the role beautifully, sent Slack emojis, laughed at meetings, even brought coffee to Lisa, who looked so relieved she nearly cried. Natalie was docile, helpful, reformed. The black sheep had accepted her pasture. But behind the scenes, her fingers were busy. She booked a burner email address through a secure mail service in Iceland. She loaded one USB drive, the exact same duck-shaped one from before, with every relevant version of her code, the final patent file, submission receipts, timestamps, and a full list of Flowcore's Git history with deletion logs and forensic timestamps, like a digital blood trail. She wrote the email slowly, carefully. It was addressed to one of the venture capital firms listed on the launch invite list, not to the general inbox, to the managing partner, the kind whose name shows up on wire covers when they gamble on the right unicorn. Subject line: authorship disclosure, Vexter's Flowcore product. She didn't hit send. Not yet. She scheduled it, timestamp 11:23 a.m., the exact midpoint of the live product launch. That Friday, Lisa stopped by her desk with a cheap smile and a printed invitation. "Glenn wanted me to let you know you're invited to the launch event," she said, handing her the paper like it was a ticket to heaven. "He thought you'd want to see your work in action." Natalie stared at it. Embossed logo, gold trim, her name in all caps. She smiled. "Thanks," she said. "That means a lot." She even RSVP'd with a yes. Spent Saturday night ironing the one decent blazer she owned. Rehearsed fake smiles in the mirror while brushing her teeth. Everything looked set. Then Sunday evening at 7:04 p.m., she got the second email. This one from Glenn. "Hey Nat, quick update. Small change to the guest list. The investors want execs only on stage and in the green room. Keeps things streamlined. Appreciate your understanding. Cheers, G." No explanation, no apology. Just a tap on the shoulder before the guillotine drops. Natalie read it once, twice. Then she opened the USB drawer. Checked the file structure again. Everything was still there. Marvin v1, v2, v3, routing logs PDF, timestamp chain TXT, cease and desist draft docs. She lit a cinnamon candle, poured a glass of Box Merlot, and watched snow melt down her window pane. When her phone buzzed with a team group photo, Glenn, Devin, and the C-suite posing under a neon sign that read launch mode, engaged, she didn't even blink. She just whispered, like a bedtime story to the screen, "Hope you packed a parachute." She closed her laptop and went to bed. The email was already en route, the knife already twisting. Her resignation was 12 words long. Effective immediately, I resigned from my position at Vexter Solutions. Regards, Natalie W. No flourish, no burn letter, no dramatic subject line like, "I quit, you thieving weasel." Just silence, clinical, almost sterile, the kind of silence that makes the air feel heavier in hindsight. She sent it at 8:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. Glenn didn't respond until 3:17 p.m. His reply: "Thanks for your contributions. Best of luck in your next adventure." Like she just wrapped up a summer internship. By then, she was already gone, laptop wiped, key card slid under the reception desk like a used napkin. She didn't tell anyone. No exit interview. No awkward cupcakes. She goes to the company like an unpaid debt. The only trace she left behind was a file folder labeled final_duck_zip that contained nothing but stock photos of ducks wearing neckties. They never noticed the missing documentation. Glenn, in his infinite hubris, didn't realize that the most critical architecture diagrams had never existed on the shared drive, that the neural core's fallback logic, the emergency routes, the conflict resolution trees, the self-healing subroutines had all been left out deliberately. Subtle gaps, easy to overlook during demo rehearsals, but impossible to patch during live deployment. They had just enough to launch a show, not enough to survive the curtain call. Natalie's apartment was dead quiet that night. No fan whirring, no cat scratching, just her and the glow of her phone as she updated her LinkedIn headline. Patent holder, Neural Adaptive Logistics AI Routing Systems. No company, no dates, just a 7-word bullet that read like a gun pointed at someone's chest. She deleted Vexter from her job history. Then she opened Slack, not to send a goodbye, but to erase herself. One by one, she removed her profile photo, cleared her status, and renamed herself former_employee. It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical, like pulling her fingerprints off the crime scene she'd been framed at. Before closing the app for good, she archived a message from Glenn in their private chat. Need that fallback logic finalized before Friday's demo. Let's circle up tomorrow. She smiled. You'll circle up all right, she thought, right into a wall. Then she did one last thing. Opened her text, found her old mentor from grad school, Dr. Marquez, the one who once told her that code was just poetry with consequences. They hadn't spoken in a year. She typed slowly, deliberately. Ever seen a system turn on its owner? No follow-up, no context. The typing dots appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Dr. Marquez finally replied, No, but I'd love to. Natalie set the phone down, heart steady as a metronome. Outside, somewhere across the city, the launch venue was lighting up. Champagne flutes clinking, investors filing in. Glenn probably practicing his smug little bow. The trap had already been baited. Now she waited for gravity to do what it always does. Bring everything back down. The lights were obnoxiously bright. White, sterile, expensive. Natalie watched them strobe across the screen, like a hostage rescue operation was about to begin. Except the only thing being held captive was the truth. She sat cross-legged on her couch, laptop perched on a cushion beside her, wine glass sweating on the radiator. The stream had started with a 5-minute delay, and the audio was already out of sync. Classic Vexter. They were live from some rented event space downtown. Chrome podiums, velvet backdrops, Vexter's logo projected in trembling blue onto an LED wall the size of a small divorce settlement. The camera panned to the crowd. Rows of VC suits filled the first few rows, all expressionless and already bored. Front and center, she recognized 3 faces from the partner page of Arcadia Capital, the firm rumored to be sniffing around Vexter for months. Billion-dollar sniffers, the kind of men who could smell a lie before the pitch deck even opened. And then came Glenn. She could practically hear his ego enter the room before his actual voice caught up. He wore a too-tight black turtleneck under a navy blazer, like he was cosplaying Steve Jobs from a discount costume store. He strutted onto the stage with that smug little lean he did when pretending he understood technical diagrams. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, spreading his arms like a messiah of middleware, welcome to Future of Logistics. Natalie took a slow sip of wine. The screen behind Glenn lit up with the Flowcore logo, the bastardized name for Marvin, rendered in an awful gradient she'd once compared to a bruised banana. Had to hand it to them. They knew how to put on a show. Everything sparkled. The transitions were smooth. There were even smoke machines. Smoke machines for a warehouse routing system. Flowcore, Glenn continued, is not just smart, it's adaptive, reactive, predictive. It thinks faster than your supply chain. It learns, it corrects. It transforms chaos into efficiency. Natalie clicked her tongue. You mean it was built by a woman you underpaid and threw out like a soggy lunch route? He gestured to the screen, and the warehouse simulation began. A glossy rendered layout of a fictional fulfillment center. Boxes moved, forklifts were routed. Latency counters ticked down in real time. It was smooth, seamless. Even Natalie's stomach tightened. The system booted clean. Neural flow stabilized. The simulation parsed real-time warehouse loads and adjusted accordingly, the way Marvin was designed to do. Her design, her vision, fingerprints all over it. The investors leaned forward. Glenn clicked through slides like a magician, revealing card tricks. We've reduced average pick times by 23%. Eliminated route congestion in high-traffic zones. The system doesn't just learn, it anticipates. Natalie's heart thudded against her ribs. Everything was too smooth, too perfect. She sipped more wine, but it didn't cut through the growing tightness in her chest. Her left foot bounced out of reflex, not out of panic, exactly, but out of anticipation, like standing on train tracks and knowing something's coming. A rumble in the rails that no one else seems to feel yet. Here's what sets Flowcore apart, Glenn said, his voice louder now. riding the momentum. We've embedded a neural decision layer that actively rewrites its routing logic on the fly, using a proprietary algorithm built in-house. Natalie choked on her own laugh. Built in-house, she muttered, wiping her mouth. My house, Glenn, my damn house. She glanced at the time, 11:20 a.m. The email would land at 11:23, down to the second. Attachments, logs, and all. The cease and desist draft, the patent hash, the commit history. It was already sliding to the fiber optic veins of the internet, like a heat-seeking round aimed straight at Glenn's credibility. She watched him strut across that stage, like a man who believed in his own magic. He had no idea the sword hanging above his head had already begun to fall. The system began to stutter at 11:22 and 44 seconds. It was subtle at first, a fractional delay in the route recalculations, just long enough to make a forklift on screen hesitate at an intersection it should breeze through, then another, a ripple of indecision, barely perceptible to the investors, but plain as day to anyone who understood what real intelligence looked like when it broke. Natalie sat forward, glass in hand, pulse thudding steady behind her ears. Glenn kept talking, oblivious. As you can see, Flowcore predicts picker fatigue and dynamically adjusts. The dashboard froze, blinked once, then again. The entire interface stuttered, like a drunk trying to recite Shakespeare. Glenn's laser pointer hovered midair, like it was waiting for someone to save him from the silence blooming in the room like mold. Then, at exactly 11 hours and 23 minutes, the screen turned red. A single line of white text appeared, dead center on the 20-foot LED display. Error. Unauthorized patent violation detected. System integrity compromised. Flowcore execution halted. Refer to registered patent ID USRV 639382. A. Owner, Natalie W. No animation. No soft fade. Just a cold, robotic slap across the face of Glenn's lie. The room stopped breathing. The camera feed cut to a wide shot. Investors frozen mid-note. One partner from Arcadia already reaching for his phone. Devin was visible in the corner, pale, whispering, "What the F?" to no one in particular. Glenn stumbled forward. There seems to be a minor system hiccup," he stammered. We'll reboot. Probably just a demo glitch. Devin, reset the backend, would you? But the keyboard didn't respond. The terminal was locked. Every attempt to override was met with the same blinking message. Violation logged. Execution disabled. The silence shifted from awkward to hostile. And somewhere, 3.7 miles away, Natalie's email arrived in the inboxes of every investor listed on the launch roster. Subject: regarding Flowcore authorship, patent dispute disclosure. Body: Dear Arcadia Capital, I believe you've been misled regarding the intellectual ownership of Vexter's Flowcore system. Please see the attached documentation, including U.S. provisional patent filings, module commit history, full timeline of development predating company integration, proprietary code samples, legal draft of cease and desist letter prepared for filing. I am the rightful inventor of the core neural routing logic currently deployed in your demo. Best, Natalie W. She took a long, slow sip of wine as the email status ticked from sent to opened. The live stream kept rolling like a silent movie of chaos. Glenn whispering furiously into his headset. Someone unplugging the console, one of the Arcadia partners closing his notebook with the precision of a guillotine blade. No one laughed. No one clapped. Natalie smiled. Not the cold, practiced smile from earlier. This one was real, raw, the kind that rises from your ribs like steam after a long winter thaw. Because there, in front of a full room of billionaires, cameras, and false prophets, truth had stood up and taken the mic. She whispered to the screen, "Told you Marvin doesn't like being stolen." And then she sat back and watched the house Glenn built collapse under the weight of its stolen bones. The investors didn't yell. They didn't slam fists or throw chairs or demand apologies. They just stood, one by one, quietly, like priests leaving a sermon that had gone blasphemous. At first, it was just a back row, murmuring into phones and slipping toward the exit. But then the Arcadia Capital partners moved, deliberate and unhurried, their expressions carved from cold stone. The lead, a silver-haired man with unreadable eyes, paused just long enough to glance at the red screen still frozen behind Glenn. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. By 11:31, the investor floor was half empty. By 11:34, the live stream had cut to a "Please stand by" slide. By 11:36, Vexter's Slack channels were on fire. Natalie watched it all unfold in real time from a browser tab she never logged out of. Someone forgot to revoke her access. Classic Glenn. Hashtag panic, hashtag Flowcore bugs, hashtag urgent demo hotfix, hashtag WTF data. It was like watching ants scramble after someone kicked their hill in. Screenshots flew like shrapnel. Frantic engineers pinged each other with lines of code they clearly didn't understand. Someone tried to reboot the routing engine from the staging server. It failed instantly. Marvin's integrity gate refused all connections. The kill switch had activated perfectly. Surgical, absolute, irreversible. Every back door she'd left open was now sealed behind her patent's digital fingerprint. They had gutted the body and forgotten the soul. Now the machine refused to breathe. At 11:49, Devin posted, "Can someone explain why there's a module function named resolve_ownership triggering a hard shutdown?" No one answered. At 12:03, Glenn's name finally popped into the threads, desperate, sweaty keyboard energy radiating off every word. This was supposed to be fixed. Who was responsible for the fallback engine? Why wasn't QA flagged? Can we roll back to the demo branch? Who still has admin access? Natalie smiled. The answer was no one. The last gas came at 12:15, when someone uploaded a screenshot of the merged data logs, timestamps, hash keys, author tags. There it was in black and white. Author, Natalie W. Patent ID linked, US 6393882A. Last verified owner signature. 72 hours pre-launch. Even Slack went quiet after that. Outside her window, snow had begun to fall, big wet flakes that hit the sill like tiny ghosts returning to watch the carnage. Natalie closed the browser, poured the last of the wine, set the glass down untouched. Then her phone lit up. Unknown email. Subject, "We'd like to speak privately." It was from Leon Gates, general partner at Arcadia Capital. The silver-haired one. The one who hadn't said a word on his way out. The body of the message was short, formal, but not cold. "Miss W., I understand you were the original architect of the technology demonstrated today. We'd like to discuss your work in detail. Off record for now. Would you be available for a brief confidential call this evening?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stared at it, like someone staring at the tide after a long, slow drowning. There wasn't triumph in her chest. Not yet, just a strange, floating stillness. She'd stepped out of the noise and into a pocket of quiet the world didn't know how to touch. She exhaled slowly, fingertips grazing the keyboard, then typed 2 words. "I'm available," and hit send. The Zoom room was silent when she entered. Muted mics, black-suited faces, soft ambient light in polished offices a world away from her Cleveland apartment. Her hair was damp, towel flattened from the shower, and she wore the same hoodie she debugged Marvin in, coffee-stained, frayed at the cuffs, older than some of the engineers who tried to replace her. But her posture was straight, eyes steady, backlit by the soft glow of her screen, and just out of frame, the printed cease and desist letter now trending on TechCrunch. The headline sat on her second monitor like a crown. "Engineer triggers patent lock at live demo. The woman behind Flowcore speaks." The partners from Arcadia Capital filled the grid. Mr. Silverhair, Leon Gates, leaned slightly toward the camera, hands tended beneath his chin, like a man ready to rewrite the future. "Miss W.," he said, calm but sharp, "thank you for joining us on such short notice." "Of course," she replied. Her voice sounded quieter than she felt. She liked it that way. The silence stretched just long enough for it to register that Glenn wasn't on the call. No Devin, no Lisa, no legal team trying to spin a story. Just her and the men who had been lied to and who weren't used to being lied to without consequence. Leon continued, his voice smooth. "We reviewed the materials you submitted. The patents, commit logs, code fingerprints. It's clear the routing engine, the adaptive neural layer, everything demonstrated last week, originated under your authorship. Independently. He paused, looked around at the others. We're not interested in Vexter, he said plainly. We're interested in you. Natalie didn't flinch, but something inside her, a coil that had been wound so tightly for so long, finally loosened. I built Marvin alone, she said, in a basement on weekends with no funding. They only saw it once it was worth stealing. Leon nodded slowly. We don't fund thieves. We fund builders. Another partner chimed in, a woman with sharp eyes and a half smile. If you're willing, we'd like to back your vision directly. A clean break. Your tech. Your terms. The word sat there in the air, real and solid, like a door opening in a wall she'd been kicking for years. Natalie smiled just a little. Not vindictive, not bitter, just whole. Send me a draft, she said. I'll have my lawyer review. Gladly, Leon said. And one more thing. When the press calls, how would you like to be introduced? She didn't hesitate. Founder, inventor, patent holder. He nodded. Then that's what you'll be. The call ended minutes later. No theatrics, no gavel slamming. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the balance had shifted. Natalie sat in the glow of the monitor, letting the silence settle again. Her email pinged with a Google alert. Flowcore crash sparks legal storm. Vexter silent as engineer takes credit. She didn't open it. Instead, she clicked open her old documents folder, found the original file named Marvin version 0.1 prototype by Natalie W. It had lived untouched since last winter, back when she still doubted if she was allowed to dream this big. She renamed the file just Marvin, nothing else. Then she opened her contacts, found Glenn Vexter, and hit delete. Gone. No warning, no recycle bin, no undo. She closed the laptop, leaned back on the couch, and whispered aloud into the quiet. Now that's company property. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.